So, hello, it's been a while since I actually posted anything on this channel, and also sorry for looking a bit of a mess. I haven't really been going out recently. I have had no reason to leave the house, so I'm just not looking as kept as I normally do. But I thought I'd do a little something, because given that it's been about, 2 months since I last actually posted anything on this channel, I wanted to do something to clear things up at a racing event that I went to, as well as explain a few things to explain why my overall driving and handling wasn't as great, and that was to do with this. So, in early December, I raced with this at the Chippenham Indoor Winter Classic for 2024, and I was experiencing several issues with it. And this, by the way, was actually my very first hobby grade RC car. I've had this since I was the age of 6, but there were countless issues I was having with this. And before I go into what was causing the problems, let's just show an example just to jog people's memories and also show those who are unfamiliar.
Oh my god, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the fuck, man? Get your ass on, boy. You get your goddamn ugly ass. Hell no, man. What the fuck?
So yeah, that was embarrassing. As you can probably tell, it was not great. It was not... Let's try that one more time, because that was a bit of a shit take. So yeah, that was not good. So what exactly was causing all of that? Well, let's just put this on the bench right there. I can't really do it on that one because somebody's left that in a mess and I've got no room to put this. But let's just go over what went wrong. So, what went wrong? Well, for starters, I think one theory might be the overall chassis itself, because before I actually started racing with this, I was actually told by somebody at the event that I was going to get outclassed, because I have heard that the TL-01B isn't the greatest chassis when it comes to radio control racing, regardless of how fast a motor you put into it, probably because of how high the gearing is. I'm curious to know how the TL-01 would be amongst a bunch of TT-01s, because I've recently bought one of those secondhand on eBay, restored it, and do plan on racing with that with the standard Core RC 21-turn motor. But something to do with the chassis itself could be a contributing factor, because I have heard that it's not the best to race with, and I have also noticed that there was literally nobody else with a TL-01B. It was eligible for the Indoor Winter Classic as well as for events like Iconic Revival, but I've not really seen many other people race with this. But in terms of speediness, it wasn't the fastest, and I think this was the contributing factor. Having a 20-turn brushed motor was a massive setback. So this was what was in that, but I have taken this out, and in favour of, I have put in a Core RC 15-turn motor. Now, I haven't actually ran this thing since putting the 15-turn in. I have actually put one in my Manta Ray, which I have tuned and built with racing in mind. But in terms of this, let's see how it runs with the 15-turn in it. Okay, so I brought it out to a business park that's a short walk from where I am. So I have sent it with the 20-ton motor, but I've never actually sent it at full throttle with the 15-ton. So this is the first time ever sending it, so here we go, with that Core RC in. Okay, yeah, that's a huge difference. Do need to get the steering adjusted for the trims, but that's a huge difference. Yep, that's brilliant. Okay, well that is a lot faster than having the 20-turn motor in, so definitely an improvement there. Now, I did also want to address a few comments that I noticed on somebody else's video. I did I didn't get any on my video about the event as such. But there were a few comments that I noticed about how I needed a quick lesson on lapping etiquette, that people were going to ram at the back of me if I weren't going to allow them to lap, or there were so many other forms of comment that I was costing the race for other people, and also just needed to allow others to lap. Now, lapping is already a form of etiquette that I am very familiar with at the local clubs. But it was something that I somehow managed to block out of my mind, and that thing, the TL-01 was so out of control that I kind of blanked that form of etiquette out in my mind, because of how all over the place it was. Because the riding and handling and overall driving experience with that for racing was just terrible. And also the other thing was, at that event, it's kind of a bit relaxed in terms of what power systems you can use. I think the limit is 10 turn brushed and the limit is 10.5 turn brushless. But there's not really a fixture in terms of the specific motor that you have to use. So you can use any brushless or brushed motor as long as it doesn't exceed those turn limits. So with that, you do have a variety of different power systems out on the track. You have some which are brushed, some are brushless, and some have different turns than others. So I think having this was what was a contributing factor into me costing the race for other people, as well as generally the car not being tuned, because I realised that if you're not going to tune the car properly for racing, not only is it going to cost the race for you, but it's also going to cost the race for other people. So that is definitely one thing to keep in mind. And regarding the comments, I really wish that people would have told me at the event and also on my YouTube channel. I really wish that people would have told me straight to my face about what I was doing out on the track and the impact it was having on other drivers. Because had it been that, then yes, I would have acted upon it immediately as soon as I would have gotten home. But the fact that this isn't really like any bitterness or any disrespect to anybody, but I just really wish that people would have told me what was happening or what I ended up doing to other people out on the track. But nobody came up and told me anything. So that's one big problem. I will say, if I, for any given reason, are doing something wrong out on the track, please tell me. Because if you don't, then that could, or if you don't do that to anybody, okay. If anybody is costing you out onto the track, hold on, I need to think about this. Sorry, I had to stop recording a bit so I don't end up messing up my words and say the wrong thing. But what I'm basically trying to say is that if me or somebody else is doing something out onto the track that's going to cost the race for other people, or going to have an impact on their race, or cost them pole position, please tell them. Because if you don't, then you're not allowing that person to improve or act upon what is causing them to do that in the first place. If you make fun of them behind their back or make comments about them behind their back, then that is just not going to that's not going to do any favours for anybody, regardless whether it's for yourself, the racer, or anybody in the radio control racing community. Because if you don't tell these people what they're doing that they're wrong, it's going to have a huge impact for everybody else. Because if you tell these people, if you tell me or anybody else who is doing things out on the track that they shouldn't be doing, then yes, tell them. I think it's best if I just left it there, because I don't want to end up saying the wrong thing, and I don't want to end up... It feels like I'm treading on thin ice with where I am going with this. But, yeah, basically, I've learnt that if you don't have the car tuned for racing, then not only is it going to cost the race for me, but it's also going to cost the race for other people. And in terms of also... Let's just go back to the TL-01B to go over why it was so bad out on the track. So what else was causing it to have such a poor performance out onto the track? Well, I think the biggest issue as well was also the tyres, because in comparison to what else was there, the tyres are unbelievably soft. Now, I did also apply a bit of additional glue, but I should have really put a bit of glue closer to the edges of the tyres, like where I'm running my finger. But even then, I don't think this is even doing it justice, but these tyres are unbelievably soft. They were cheap ones from AliExpress, and yeah, that's probably what was causing it to do a lot of barrel rolling out onto the track. So these are going to be coming off. I do actually have some Tamiya dish rims. Now I am going to get some spike tyres, because the aim of this was originally to get it as close to how it originally looked as possible. But I haven't been able to find... These have been a very difficult find recently, but I have managed to find some on eBay. I can't remember the seller's name, but I am going to get some spiked tyres for this, to get this to replicate how the TL-01 originally looked back in the day, as well as also some decals as well. Now, one other major contributing factor was the joint cups, the joint shafts rather, because I do actually have a photo of the old ones compared to the new ones. So here they are. So the ones are much shorter in comparison to the new ones which I originally got, because that is completely the wrong size, and so much so that I actually, because in each of the uprights and steering knuckles is that I would have to use 2 bearings, but I was only able to use one of them, and it was wobbling about all over the place. In fact, here's a little video showing how bad the wobble was. So that is not good. And if I show you now, there is no wobble. It's completely stiff. So that's a good thing. So I feel like once I've got the wheels sorted, but also there was one other thing. So the shocks, it was kind of slacking a little bit round the back, which is not good. I am thinking about changing the shock oil in this, but then I had second thoughts. But I will explain while I'm wrapping up this video. Now, in terms of the future of my Baja Champ, even though I will plan on putting some entirely new wheels on, I will be putting some decals on this when I can. Might get some custom made. I might draw some up and see what I can come up with this. But basically, because of the sentimental value of this, I have decided not to race with this ever again. I will only ever use it just for leisure purposes, purely because I don't want this thing to break. This holds a special place in my heart. It was the very first ever hobby grade RC car that I have ever owned. I got it for my 6th birthday, and I'm so glad that I've just never ever part with this. And for something to happen to this would just be catastrophic. So this I will never ever be racing with again. In terms of the 4-wheel drive classic category, I will be racing with... Bear with me. Ta-da! So, if you're a subscriber of mine, you may already be familiar with this, but for those who are not, this is the Manta Ray that I bought in September, and I started assembling it and working on it in December. But this was specifically bought for vintage racing events and has been tuned with racing in mind. There are a few other bits that I do need to have done, but I'm already prepared for this. So in there, I know you really can't see the label, but there is a Core RC 15 ton, and I did test this while out on my cousin's place, and this thing is rapid with that motor in. And there are already a few things I have in mind for this, but I just want to put this on the table to show what a couple of problems with this so far are. Okay, so there is one thing that definitely needs replacing on this thing, and that is the propeller shaft in there, because it's just that. You can see how wobbly that is. And when I started assembling this, I took this out of the box and out of the packaging, and I thought, there's no way that that's the propeller shaft. But this kit dates back to 1990, so yeah, it was a very different time back then, and things were not quite as advanced and rugged as they are now. But that propeller shaft is way too thin to be racing out on the track. I'm definitely going to have to take this out. There is one from Jazz Rider that I've got my eye on, which was designed for the Top Force, because basically this, the Manta Ray, is just basically a Top Force, but just without all of the upgrades. There's also maybe a bit of carbon fibre I might have to put in here on the shock towers. Now, also may as well mention, I'm going to have to change the shock oil, because it is slacking ridiculously at the front, but even worse out the back. So that I'm going to need to take care of. In terms of other upgrades, I have been told there is a better version of the body that will suit this. But other than that, it drives so far quite nicely. I will also put some glue around the tyres, but these tyres are also a lot harder and have thicker rubber than compared to the ones that are currently on the Baja Champ. So this will be getting a few upgrades along the way and also have the suspension sorted as well. But what else was there to talk about? Oh yeah, that was the other thing. So before I do actually enter this in championship events, I do want to actually be 100% sure that this is tuned for racing. Chippenham, which is only about a 30-minute drive from where I am at best, does do off-road club racing. Froome, I believe, occasionally do off-road stuff. I could be wrong on that. But I think they focus on more of the modern stuff, which, if they do vintage as well, that would be ideal because it's only 20 minutes down the road. But I am going to keep out on where is local for me to race this thing at, because I do want to be 100% sure that this is tuned for racing before actually doing any championship events with this. Yeah, so that's one thing I'm definitely going to be keeping in mind. But overall, the thing drives nicely. I did drive it briefly around. But there are also going to be a lot of upgrades that I'm going to be putting into this, as well as just generally tuning this for when it goes out onto the track. And that might be for a separate video to show what I'm doing in mind with this. In fact, maybe I could, if the events will allow it, maybe because there's enough room on there to potentially put a camera. So it could give a very interesting point of view out onto the track. So hopefully, I don't know if my GoPro or not Osmo Action, definitely won't, but there is a action camera I do have my eye on that could fit in there. But we'll just have to wait and see, and if I can use it with it in there. And that's going to be very interesting if I am able to do that. Anyway, I think that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm sorry if I did come across a bit... I don't know how I came across when trying to explain the whole etiquette thing. Hopefully I didn't come across badly. But I just wanted to clear a few things up on that, as well as... But I will definitely be taking a few things on board of what I have learnt with racing with the TL-01B. But other than what's going to be coming next week, I don't actually know, because I don't have any videos plans. I don't really have anything exciting to show off, so it could be a while until you do see anything from me again. But whatever I do in the future moving forwards, I will definitely have something for later on in the year. But until then, thank you so much for watching, and take care of yourselves.